Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Bryan Concert Hall. My name is Elizabeth Heath. I teach here in the music department, and I've been On's voice instructor for the past 4 years. I'm so happy to welcome all of you here to On's senior lecture recital entitled Singing for My People, Music of Vietnam and War. This event will last approximately 1 hour without intermission, and it will be made up of pre-recorded videos created by On, interspersed with live performances by On and her ensemble. So before we begin, I invite you, or I ask you please to check your phone, make sure it is silenced. Also, please note in the unlucky event that we need to leave this room quickly, there are 3 exits from this space: the stage door, the concert hall entrance, and then an alarmed emergency exit in the back. On would like to invite all of you to a reception following the recital in the rehearsal room behind the concert hall, and you can find that space by leaving through the concert hall entrance and walking down the hallway. So without further ado, I would like to welcome to the stage On Ho.
Good evening, and thank you so much for being here tonight. This lecture recital explores Vietnamese music during the war that is commonly known in the United States as the Vietnam War. In Vietnam, however, it is called the Resistance War Against America. Even that difference in naming reveals something important. History depends on where you are standing. In the United States, this war is often remembered through American protest songs, Hollywood films, and political speeches. Artists like Bob Dylan and Joan Baez have helped shape the musical memory of that era. But what were the Vietnamese singing during this challenging and tragic time in their country's history? What did the war sound like from within the Vietnam itself? Tonight, I invite you to listen from that perspective. Vietnamese wartime music was never a single, unified voice. In the North, revolutionary songs were written to strengthen collective identity and sustain national resistance. In the South, songwriters composed anti-war ballads filled with grief and a profound longing for peace. Across regions and political realities, composers gave voice to patriotism, doubt, sorrow, resilience, and hope. Together, these songs review the emotional and spiritual landscape of a nation living through war, not as abstract conflict, but as daily reality. The objective of this lecture recital is to explore the war through Vietnamese sound, through melody, poetry, and voice. Rather than viewing Vietnam as a backdrop to global politics, we will listen to Vietnam as a subject, a people narrating their own history through music. As a Vietnamese student studying music in the United States, presenting this recital here carries special meaning for me. It is an opportunity to share not only music, but perspective, to allow Vietnamese voice to be heard within a history that is often told from the outside. Tonight, I invite you to listen closely, not only to the notes, but to the stories they carry. Before we begin, please note that the following lecture includes historical images from the war, which may be emotionally challenging for some viewers. Thank you.
Before we can fully understand the music of this war, we first need to understand the land that shaped it. On the eastern coast of Southeast Asia's Indochinese Peninsula lies the slender country of Vietnam. The S-shaped country is bordered by China to the north, Laos and Cambodia to the west, the Gulf of Thailand to the southwest, the Gulf of Tonkin to the northeast, and the South China Sea to the southeast. These desirable port locations, along with the country's varied and fertile lands, made Vietnam a frequent target of conquest throughout history. The country's varied geography includes low-lying plains, mountains, plateaus, terrace hills, jungles, vast green valleys, beaches, swamps, and even some deserts. In Vietnamese, Vietnam is written as two words, Viet and Nam. Viet refers to the first and primary ethnic group, while Nam means south. Taken together, Vietnam can be understood as the land of the Southern Viet people, as South in Vietnamese often evokes what belongs to Vietnam, while North is commonly associated with China. This idea of North and South is more than just a directional label. It reflects centuries of different experience, environments, and ways of life. Over time, Northern and Southern Vietnam developed distinct cultural identities shaped by their unique histories and surroundings. Northern Vietnam, centered on the Red River Delta, is the cradle of Vietnamese civilization with over 2,000 years of history and has been deeply influenced by long periods of Chinese rule and interaction. As a result, Confucianism, Taoism, and Mahayana Buddhism strongly shaped Northern society, emphasizing hierarchy, etiquette, respect for education, and academic achievement. Northern Vietnamese are often described as reserved and discreet, valuing honor, reputation, thrift, and long-term security, with strong ties to villages and extended families, and a communication style that tends to be formal. In contrast, where I grew up, in Ho Chi Minh City, formerly known as Saigon, Southern Vietnamese culture developed later through the southward expansion beginning in the 17th centuries and reflects a blend of Vietnamese settlers with many external influences, including Chinese immigrants, Hindi culture, and later Western contact through French and American presence. Southern culture is often characterized by openness, adaptability, and less attachment to formal traditions. Vietnam's narrow territory stretching from north to south, its central location in Southeast Asia, and its more than 3,000 kilometers of coastline have given it a highly strategic geopolitical position as a gateway to the region and an important point of access to southern China. Situated at the crossroads of major international maritime routes, Vietnam has long been a meeting point for trade, cultural exchange, and competing powers. Combined with its abundant natural resources, the land offered much that more powerful nations sought to control. Most people quickly recall the American involvement during the Resistance War against America. And before that, the prolonged period of French colonialism, but for centuries prior, the Vietnamese has already gone head-to-head with neighboring powers such as the Chinese and the Mongols to preserve their independence. The Chinese ruled Vietnam for almost a millennium, approximately from 111 BC to 938 AD. The Vietnamese fought for their independence through several revolts with either short-lived or no success. It was not until 939 CE, when China's Tang dynasty was losing power, that the Vietnamese successfully overthrew Chinese rule and maintained independence for the next 400 years. The Mongols and the Chinese attempt to conquer Vietnam periodically over the next 4 centuries. In 1802, the Nguyen family took power and ruled as the last dynasty of Vietnam. Let's take a look now at one of composer Trịnh Công Sơn most haunting and representative anti-war songs, which was composed around 1965 when the intensity of the war with America was rapidly advancing. Gia tài của mẹ, or My Mother's Legacy, has a bright, lilting rhythm, flowing gently like a children's folk rhyme, which contrasts sharply with its sorrowful lyrics about war. The song portrays the image of a Vietnamese mother who, in deep suffering, passes down to her children a tragic legacy shaped by the nation's history. This legacy is distilled into painful historical figures in the song's lyrics. Quote, 1,000 years of Chinese domination, 100 years of Western colonization, 20 years of civil war, unquote, evoking the long chain of loss and oppression endured by the country. Through these lines, Trịnh Công Sơn expresses sorrow over the fate of a small and vulnerable nation and conveys a longing for honesty in the admonition to, quote, teach your children to speak truthfully, unquote. Part of the Ca khúc Da Vàng, Songs of Yellow Skin collection. The song belongs to what later came to be labeled Nhạc Vàng, yellow music, a term used in socialist Vietnam to describe pre-1975 Southern music, often associated with theme of loss, romantic sorrow, and, in some cases, anti-war perspectives, not in support of either the North or the United States, but expressing opposition to the resistant war against America and the suffering it caused for Vietnamese people on all sides. In contrast, Nhạc Đỏ, red music, refers to revolutionary songs that praise communist cause, forming the officially endorsed soundtrack of wartime mobilization in the North. The distinction between red and yellow music was not merely aesthetic, but deeply political. Red music was promoted by the state as embodying patriotism and revolutionary heroism, while yellow music, especially works that portrayed as the war as tragic, was often criticized for lacking revolutionary spirit. My Mother's Legacy has also generated significant political controversy, particularly surrounding the phrase, quote, 20 years of civil war, unquote. This characterization has been criticized by scholars and cultural authorities for failing to accurately reflect the nature of the resistant war against America. As a result, the song has been restricted from circulation. These debates resurfaced in June 2022 when renowned singer Ken Lee performed the song at a concert in Dalat, despite this piece not being included on the list of officially approved repertoire. Modern censorship in Vietnam operates through licensing systems and cultural regulations overseen by the Communist Party of Vietnam, requiring artists to align with official narratives on history, politics, and morality. Although contemporary artists enjoy more creative space than in early decades, politically sensitive interpretations, especially those concerning wartime memory, remain subject to restriction. Let us explore now some external colonizing powers in the modern history of Vietnam, Western influence in Vietnam began in the 1500s with missionaries from France, Portugal, and Spain that sought to spread Roman Catholicism throughout the world. The French established the most lasting connection in Vietnam and aided the Vietnamese in several conflicts against the Chinese in the late 1700s and early 1800s. By 1858, France had fully invaded Vietnam and declared it a French colony. Ho Chi Minh organized the Indo-Chinese Communist Party and staged a nationalist movement against French rule on February 3, 1930. He is an important figure who we will explore later in this lecture. The Japanese occupation of Vietnam during World War II severely weakened France's power over the small country. France attempted to regain power after the war, but Ho Chi Minh and the Viet Minh, also known as the League for the Independence of Vietnam, seized control of northern Vietnam in 1945 and declared it the Democratic Republic of Vietnam, a communist state. This sparked the French-Viet War in 1946. To prevent the spread of communism, the United States began their involvement with Vietnam by aiding the French in this conflict in 1950. The French met defeat in 1954 when the communists took siege of a major French fortress through guerrilla warfare. After this war, the Geneva Conference held that Vietnam would be divided into two countries at the 17th parallel, Communist Northern and Democratic Southern. Gửi người em gái, or Letter to My Beloved in the South, was written by Đoàn Trỗ and Từ Linh in the spring of 1954, just as Vietnam was divided into North and South. It's a musical love letter. The beloved girl feels close and intimate, but also a little elusive, less a single person, more an idealized presence. And it's not just a song about lovers. It reflects the sorrow of a country divided, where private longing mirrors the larger experience of a nation split into two. At that time, many people from the north moved south, including families and officials seeking freedom from the pressures of the new government. In the song, the beloved girl represents someone the composer loved who had to leave Hanoi with her family, leaving him behind. The lyrics are full of delicate imagery. The violet branch, the aster flower, the flowing blue silk dress. These images evoke the beauty of Hanoi women, while also painting a quiet, nostalgic portrait of the city itself, a space of memory and longing. One of the most striking images is the train carrying news, paired with the line, Hanoi is still waiting for you to return. On the surface, it's about faithfulness. Beneath that, it carries a hope for reunion and even for the country to be whole again. Letter to My Beloved in the South is more than a love song. It's both a story of personal emotion and national history, of hope across distance and division. one of the most significant figures who fought against the colonization of Vietnam was Ho Chi Minh. Born Nguyễn Sinh Cung in 1890 at the village of Kim Linh in Nghệ An Province, northern Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh was the son of a Confucian scholar and teacher. From an early age, he was influenced by Vietnamese nationalism and the desire for independence from French colonial rule. In 1911, he left Vietnam to work and travel abroad. During his time in Europe, he became increasingly involved in the political activism and socialist movements, working with Vietnamese expatriate communities to promote national. Throughout the 1920s and 1930s, Ho Chi Minh lived and studied in the Soviet Union and China, where he continued to develop his revolutionary ideology and gain experience in organizing communist movements. He returned to Vietnam in the 1940s to organize anti-colonial efforts, and in 1941 founded the Viet Minh, a nationalist and communist-led organization aimed at resisting Japanese occupation and later French colonial forces. After Japan's surrender in 1945, Ho Chi Minh declared the independence of Vietnam on September 2, 1945, established the Democratic Republic of Vietnam in Hanoi. He sought to unify the country and resist the return of French colonial control. Throughout the 1950s and 1960s, Ho Chi Minh concentrated on consolidating the North Vietnamese state while backing the Viet Cong, the communist guerrilla movements that wages an insurgency in South Vietnam from 1954 to 1975. Supported by the North Vietnamese Army, the Viet Cong fought against South Vietnamese and U.S. forces during the resistance war against America, with the goal of reunifying the country under communist rule. Despite immense international pressure, particularly from the United States, Ho Chi Minh maintained a reputation for simplicity, humility, and dedication to national liberation. Ho Chi Minh remained president of North Vietnam until his death in 1969. He is widely regarded in Vietnam as the father of the nation and a symbol of Vietnamese independence, patriotism, and socialist ideals. Following his death, the nation entered a period of profound mourning, with an estimated more than 150,000 people attending his funeral in Hanoi, reflecting collective sense of loss that he died before seeing his vision fully realized and before the war concluded. The song Tự Nguyện, or in English, Devotion, was written by Chu Quốc Khánh in the spring of 1968 during the general offensive carried out by the military and people of South Vietnam. It is a piece of so-called red music. This was a period when all pro-communist youth and student movements were tightly restricted and harshly suppressed by the South Vietnamese authorities. Yet, millions of young people continued to take part in pro-communist activities. At that time, Chu Quốc Khánh was only a 21-year-old student, actively involved in the movement Hát cho đồng bào tôi nghe, or Singing for My People. The Singing for My People movement was a cultural movement launched to inspire the pro-communist spirit of the people in South Vietnam, especially among youth and students. Through performances and songs, the campaign conveyed communist ideals and solidarity. The United States became involved. And military efforts in Vietnam by providing financial and military support to France. This support was motivated less by loyalty to French colonialism and more by American fears of communist expansion in Indochina during the early Cold War. In 1954, French forces were defeated by the Viet Minh at the Battle of Dien Bien Phu. The 1954 Geneva Accords that followed ended French colonial rule in Indochina and temporarily divided Vietnam at the 17th parallel. The North was governed by the Democratic Republic of Vietnam, while the South was placed under a separate United States-backed administration led by Ngo Dinh Diem, the first president of South Vietnam from 1955 until his assassination in 1963. Diem's government was strongly anti-communist but lacked broad popular support, particularly in rural areas. By the late 1950s, opposition in the South grew as communist-led insurgents, later known as the Việt Cộng, challenged the South Vietnamese government with support from North Vietnam, including supplies transported along what became known as the Ho Chi Minh Trail. In response to the growing insurgency, the United States gradually increased its involvement, first by sending military advisors rather than combat troops. Political instability in South Vietnam worsened after Diem's repression of Buddhist protest, leading the United States to support a military coup in 1963, in which Diem was overthrown and assassinated. After President John F. Kennedy's assassination, President Lyndon B. Johnson expanded American involvement further, shifting from advisory support toward direct military action. In early 1965, the United States began sustained bombing campaigns against North Vietnam, most notably Operation Rolling Thunder, while also deploying large numbers of ground combat troops to South Vietnam. By the late 1960s, more than 500,000 American soldiers were stationed in Vietnam. U.S. strategy relied heavily on superior firepower, search and restore missions, and the belief that military pressure would weaken the resolve of North Vietnam and the Việt Cộng. However, this approach proved ineffective against a highly motivated enemy that relied on guerrilla warfare, local knowledge, and widespread political support in the rural areas, and active involvement by the motivated young men and women. Vietnamese women played a critical role in supporting the resistance against U.S. military involvement, particularly through extensive behind-the-scenes operations that sustained the wider war effort. Drawing on the folk proverb expressing the patriotic tradition of Vietnamese women, quote, "When the enemy comes to the house, even the women fight," unquote. Women contributed across multiple spheres, not only in moments of direct confrontation, but especially in the essential labor that made military resistance possible. They served as logistic personnel, spies, and communication soldiers, and they fought in battle, capturing enemy soldiers just like their male counterparts, many while simultaneously caring for their children and families. From female guerrilla militias to soldiers in the People's Armed Forces of Vietnam, women made significant contributions to the nation's victory in its resistance against the United States. Composed in 1966, at the height of the resistance war against America, Cô gái mở đường, or The Way-Paving Girl, by composer Sun Giao, stands as both a musical composition and a historical document. The song was written after the composer undertook perilous field trips through the Ho Chi Minh Trail, where he directly witnesses the lives and labor of female youth volunteers. These young women, often barely in their late teens or early 20s, were tasked with filling bomb craters, cleaning debris, and ensuring that roads remained passable so that military vehicles could continue toward the battlefields. One of the song's most memorable lines, quote, "Not seeing a face, only hearing the singing voice," unquote, has become emblematic of the spirit of wartime optimism. The image suggests that even amid smoke, dust, and bomb blast, the sounds of singing rises above fear and devastation. In January 1968, Communist forces launched the Tet Offensive, a coordinated series of attacks on cities and military targets throughout South Vietnam. Although the offensive resulted in heavy losses for the Viet Cong and North Vietnamese forces, it shocked the American public and contradicted official claims that the war was nearing victory. The Tet Offensive marked a turning point in public opinion, significantly undermining American domestic support for the war and increasing anti-war protests across the United States. In response to growing opposition, President Johnson announced he would not seek re-election and began scaling back the U.S. involvement. Under President Richard Nixon, the United States adopted a policy of Vietnamization, aiming to gradually withdraw American troops while transferring combat responsibilities to the South Vietnamese military. At the same time, the U.S. expanded bombing campaigns into neighboring Cambodia and Laos in an attempt to disrupt North Vietnamese supply lines, further destabilizing the region. Despite continued American aid, the South Vietnamese government remained plagued by corruption, low morale. In 1973, the Paris Peace Accords were signed, leading to the withdrawal of U.S. combat forces from Vietnam. Although the agreement called for a ceasefire and peaceful reunification, fighting between North and South Vietnam resumed soon after. Without direct American military support, South Vietnamese forces struggled to resist renewed North Vietnamese offensive. In only 5 days in April 1975, large northern Vietnamese forces encircled, attacked, and overtook Saigon. President U Văn Minh, the last president of South Vietnam, declared the unconditional surrender of the Saigon government, officially ending the war. The formal reunification of Vietnam did not mean that all citizens immediately accepted the new regime. Many people in the South remained loyal to the government of the Republic of Vietnam, fearing political and social changes. Some left Vietnam during wave of immigration, particularly to the United States, Canada, Australia, and France, forming large Vietnamese diaspora communities abroad. Those who stayed had to adapt to the new political environment. Many were sent to re-education camps or required to participate in compulsory political training programs, creating significant challenges and psychological strain in the early post-war years. The war left enormous consequences both in human and material terms. It is estimated that around 3 to 5 million Vietnamese died, most of whom were civilians, along with millions other wounded. Many families lost their primary breadwinners, children were orphaned, and rural communities suffered heavy losses. Infrastructure, including roads, bridges, villages, schools, and hospitals, were destroyed. Rural areas and deltas were devastated by unexploded bombs, landmines, and other devices, which has long-lasting effects on safety and agricultural productivity. Thus, consequences of chemical agents, such as Agent Orange, also caused severe damage to the environment, farmland, and the health of multiple generations. Vietnam's post-war economy was left in a state of collapse, with food shortages, damaged infrastructure, and international embargoes. Full recovery took several decades. Politically, Vietnam today is officially the Socialist Republic of Vietnam, a single-party system led by the Communist Party of Vietnam. The government tightly controls political messaging, the media, and educational activities while focusing on political stability and economic development. The government tightly controls political messaging, the media, and educational activities while focusing on political stability and economic development. This control also extends to the arts, where musicians, writers, and other artists may face censorship if their work challenges official narratives or addresses political sensitive topics. Regarding the environment and land, many areas that were bombed or contaminated by chemicals have gradually been rehabilitated, although some regions remain affected by unexploded devices and environmental pollutants. Hanoi, Hue, and Saigon have been rebuilt with modern infrastructure, high-rise buildings, and new roads, resulting in landscape dramatically different from the 1970s. Saigon transformed from a devastated city into modern Ho Chi Minh City. Villages once destroyed have been transformed into lush rice fields. Damaged bridges and roads have been rebuilt, and new highways and major bridges have been constructed. The year 2025 marked a particularly important historical milestone for Vietnam as the country celebrated the 50th anniversary of the liberation of the South and national reunification with major celebrations held in Ho Chi Minh City after half a century of peace and development. Vietnam is where I was born, my homeland, my country, the source of who I am. Every time I speak the name Vietnam, I feel a deep, steady pride. I am a Vietnamese girl, born and raised on a small yet heroic strip of land, peaceful, stretching along the shores of the Pacific Ocean. Who could have imagined that this land would endure so many wars? Growing up, I often ask myself, what is Vietnam to me? I did not live through the war, yet I inherited its legacy, and with it comes a responsibility to carry forward the memories of that history and the voices of those who lived through it. The song Việt Nam trong tôi là, in English, Vietnam in me, by Yến Lê, expresses this feeling perfectly. Its bright, contemporary melody, intertwined with hints of traditional Vietnamese music, reminds me of my roots. Wherever I go, whatever I do, as the song lyrics says, my red blood, yellow skin. A symbol of the Vietnam flag is a source of pride and a spiritual anchor. The song does not celebrate battles or heroes alone. It paints Vietnam as both grand and familiar. Mountains, rivers, and seas alongside the gentle beauty of the traditional dress, warm voices, and everyday acts of kindness. Working on this project has been especially meaningful because I did not study the resistant war against America in a Vietnamese high school. I went to the United States for secondary education, where the focus was entirely on American perspectives. Researching the war from Vietnamese viewpoint has allowed me to understand my homeland's history in a way I never had before. I learned that Vietnam's story is not only battles or politics, but human experience, emotion, and resilience. Exploring the lives of ordinary people, especially women and youth, and how music expressed their grief, hope, and patriotism gave me a deeper appreciation for the nation's collective strength. This project has reshaped the way I see Vietnam, not only as the place of my birth, but as a land defined by creativity, endurance, and the courage of its people. As you leave tonight, I invite you to carry these songs not just as music, but as stories of a people, a homeland, and a history that continue to live in every note. Perhaps, like me, you will see Vietnam not only as a place on the map, but as a source of resilience, identity, and enduring pride.
this moment. This night would not be the same without you. To the musicians today, Mike, Ashley, Miles, Fiona, and Evan, thank you for your incredible talent, dedication, and for sharing your music and energy with me on this stage. To everyone working behind the scenes who made everything run so smoothly, especially Providence College Media Services, Naya, Dr. Longo, Ryan, and all those who helped make this night possible, thank you for your hard work and care. To the music department faculty and staff, Dr. Gordon, Jennifer, and everyone, thank you from the bottom of my heart. To Dr. Longo, thank you. You are the reason I am here today at Providence College, and I carry that with me with so much gratitude. Thank you for believing in me and helping shape my growth throughout these years. To Elizabeth, this journey has not always been easy, and I truly couldn't have done this without you. From the very beginning to now, you have been there for me every step. Thank you for your patience, your guidance, and for always knowing exactly how to push me when I need and how to support me when I didn't believe in myself. You have helped me grow not only as a musician, but as a person. To my friends, thank you for your constant love and support, not just tonight, but throughout this entire journey. And to my family who's watching through the live stream right now, this recital is as much yours as mine.